I met the legend, guys. I met the legend, the guy that I wanted to meet for a very, very long time. Ever since I went for the first MSP event, I've seen him on stage. I've listened to him, and he inspired me so much. And I always wanted to meet you, Rob. Thank you so much for spending some time with me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Look, I really wanted to ask you because I've seen you on so many MSP events. This community is awesome here in the US. How large is the community in the US, in your opinion?
Depends on how you want to define it. If you want to talk about the number of MSPs, we're probably talking about 35, 40,000 approximately. And the thing is, though, it's constantly changing and growing. And then the amount of people that are kind of entering the MSP space and migrating towards it from the reseller model or the VAR model to MSP. And, so it's a constantly growing number. And I think it's growing because of the opportunity in the SMB market and where all that growth is coming from is literally those SMB businesses and more so after the pandemic. So it's just, a phenomenal time and a constantly growing number.
When I spoke to PAX 8 people, they always correct me. We are a platform company.
Uh, yes. So it's this migration away from what you would traditionally call a distributor, right? Which in essence is just a grocery store. You walk in there, you go and buy something, you walk out, right? But you're making the choice. You're being shown what's on the shelves based on who's paying what, those kinds of things. Whereas, we are transitioning and have transitioned to a marketplace. And a marketplace is a completely different experience. If you think about a marketplace, it's more like what you're going to get on Amazon, where you can see user feedback, comparable products, all in one place, so that you have the ability to make better choices based on what your needs are, as opposed to what's just right there in front of you.
The model seems to be working because I'm listening to a lot of partners and MSPs and also the vendors, and everybody says PAX 8 is on a growth mode, on a growth trajectory like crazy.
Yeah, that's great to hear because we've transitioned again to this company that is investing in technology, as opposed to a distributor who just sells other people's technology. And the great part about it too is that we're actually leveraging newer technology like AI to actually develop these things to actually create and enhance the experience that we've got. So if you're hearing that MSPs and vendors are loving it, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want.
Absolutely, PAX 8 is on my radar list for a while, and I also heard that everybody is talking about your expansion to Europe. You just had a great event in Berlin that sadly I missed, but I'm hoping to have it to go for it next year. How was Berlin?
Oh, it was absolutely amazing. And you're right. So it was our first user conference in EMEA. We had 504 MSPs actually registered for it. Just under 500 actually showed up. And you know what? What's awesome about it is because it's such a new event, we can do new and creative things. And the energy level right from the beginning was so high. And I have very high expectations when I go to these things, especially because it's our own party. I want everything to be perfect. Even my expectations were blown away. So there is a lot of very, very positive feedback, a lot of momentum coming out of it. We already have like 400 partners registered for our event in Amsterdam in October of 25. So it looks like not only is everybody going to come back, but we're going to be able to expand on that. But Europe is a strategic market for us, and we are growing very, very quickly over there. We have phenomenal European leadership. We have offices all around Europe, and we've been expanding very, very quickly into multiple countries everywhere in there. So
I understand that you have more than 10. How many countries are you in already?
Oh no, we're in 50. How many? 52. Yeah, 52 different countries that we actually are doing business in right now. Our MSPs are doing business with MSPs in 52 different countries. Yeah.
This is great expansion. And how do you see the market between the Europe and US? Like the landscape of the partners. My understanding and my feeling is that there are way more resellers who didn't make the full transition to the MSPs. Is that your understanding of the situation as well?
It's again, it's a tough one because it depends on how you define what an MSP is. In my mind, an MSP is somebody that actually maintains the relationship with the end user, is the front line of defense, is working with them on a month-to-month basis, and a lot of times the vendor itself is somewhat invisible to the end user. It's the MSP that's delivering those services. So, if we define it in that way. I think that we did see probably a slower adoption, because if you think about where the MSP space came from in the Americas, it came from the reseller market. Resellers transitioning from one-time revenue to recurring revenue, away from hardware sales. We're both ex-hardware guys. Like, remember how many the margins we used to give away on hardware back in the day were pretty.
I remember the discounts.
Yeah, that's true. But the amount of money that you would make off that hardware was enough that you could give away the services for free. And then, the hardware companies ruined all that, and the distributors ruined all that. And then all of a sudden now everybody, has not making any money off hardware. So, this was the transition to services. And a lot of that came from the reseller and VAR world. In Europe, maybe it was a little bit slower, especially in some of the pockets out there where they just started selling more stuff on a one-time basis, or, the market wasn't big enough to make that actual transition, or the market wasn't ready, meaning the end users weren't ready to move to a recurring revenue contract type basis. So, we are still seeing a transition. We're still seeing growth in the MSP space in Europe. But you're right. I don't think it was as quick as what happened in the United States. But you know what? Europe always gets a little bit of a knock from that. I'm actually from Canada, and in Canada also gets a little bit of a knock where we're always told that we're like 4 or 5 years behind the United States. And I think to a certain extent from a technology standpoint, that was relatively true. However, I think that with the adoption of technology, new things coming into the market, this opportunity for everybody, like from a community standpoint, to work globally as opposed to just locally, I think that time frame is shortening, and we are seeing a lot of European partners that are actually very moving very quickly and advanced in a lot quicker period of time.
I hear a lot of from my colleagues in Europe. I hear a lot of interest in transitioning to an MSP model, but people struggle. The resellers struggle. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to do that. Do you have any recommendations? What are the kind of a 1, 2, 3 important things that you need to knock off to start the transition?
Yeah, that's fair. So you have to get away from the idea that you need to be the single place for everyone, meaning you're selling multiple solutions, like almost like a distributor yourself, where if an end user comes and says, I want this backup solution, and a different end user comes and says, I want this backup solution, and you sell all the backup solutions, that takes away from the value of what a managed service provider does. MSPs are the ones that are responsible for going and vetting out a technology to put into their stack, and then going out and recommending that technology. It makes it a scalable one where you're only dealing with one vendor for that, as opposed to trying to be something for everybody. But then again, it's building that stack, creating creating a service that you are taking to market. So rather than going in there and saying, "Hey, I'm Microsoft, I'm a Microsoft reseller," you're going in there saying, "Hey, I'm ABC Tech." And what's under the hood, as far as the tech that you're actually selling, should be, again, somewhat irrelevant to the actual end user, and that's kind of the real key on the MSP model. I think the other thing too is you have to get your end users to adopt to a recurring revenue, and signing contracts for those recurring revenue. You can still have outs on those contracts. You can still do month to months, because a lot of vendors work that way as well. But having that level of comfort and changing the way in which you are billing your customers, working with your end user customers, that's going to be the key to it. And we went through that transition here in the Americas market, where the end users that didn't want to adopt ended up getting let go. They ended up getting rid of them, at which point then they go try to find another MSP. But if everybody's doing the same thing and saying, no, you got to sign a contract, no, you got to pay for this recurring, no, you got to use the technology that's in my stack, then all of a sudden the end users adopted to this model.
So your point is, if I understand correctly, when you want to start doing the transition, start with your customer, start with the customers that you really have a very, very strong connection, so you can make this kind of a first step. Is that the direction?
Yeah, I would definitely, because ultimately, at the end of the day, we're all here to make money. We're all here to make sure that we are healthy and driving healthy organizations, employing people and paying people and all that type of stuff. So if you can't get your end users to adopt to a new business model, That's going to be first key. Then second key is finding efficiencies within that business, looking at the technologies in the stack, looking at the vendors that you're actually working with, so you can confidently go out to these end users and say, I'm bringing you best in class, but you're also making money on the margins that these vendors are giving you for the tech as well. But I would suggest that you're not going to necessarily just kind of rip off the Band-Aid, change to managed services, and hope everybody adopts. It's a conversation you have to have with your end users, or go find more SME end users to work with that will adopt to this model.
How PAX 8 can help?
Oh, we have phenomenal resources. So this is one of the reasons why I love working for this company is that we are MSP only. Right, so we only sell to MSPs. We don't sell to anybody else. So if the MSPs are not growing, and this is globally, if they're not growing, we're not growing. So we actually have a phenomenal partner program where we actually are investing quite a bit into coaches, education, training. We have our academy team. We have peer groups, and all of this stuff. A lot of this stuff is actually for free. There's no cost for it if you're a PAX 8 partner, because again, we want MSPs to grow. We want them to grow very quickly. We want to give them the level of education, and a lot of the educators that we have on our team are actually ex-MSPs that have successfully exited their businesses, sold their businesses. So we still invest quite heavily into that part of our business for sure.
And you provide those services and this help to the resellers that want to transition to MSPs, or just MSPs that want to get better?
No, it's available to anybody that wants it. Absolutely, yeah. No, and again, we can help with all of that. How to price things, how to go to market with things. What are some of the objections you're going to get from the end users, and how do you overcome those objections? We have all of those models and all of the right people to train our partners on how to do it.
What about the SMB market? How do you see the SMB market, evolving in the near future? Do you have any strong opinions?
Yeah, and I think it's universally an accepted opinion where, especially the pandemic. The pandemic forced a lot of people to kind of relook at the way in which they work. You think about we talked about marketplace right off the beginning. If you think about how people are consuming things, it's much easier to find smaller businesses these days that do things that are more relevant to what your needs are, rather than having to go to large enterprise companies to consume things. So what we've seen through the pandemic, it's not just us, but a lot of industry studies are saying that the small, medium businesses that are out there are actually thriving. And it's because everybody was kind of forced to find new ways to consume things during the pandemic. And after the pandemic, and everything's opened up, and we're all back to relatively normal ways of working, what we found is that people still like to consume things from SMBs. You look at Etsy is a perfect example here in the United States. You can literally go and find people that are in their homes that are making things that you can consume, right? So it gets to that point where the availability, the ease of finding these things, all these SMBs are going to thrive. My wife herself started a small business during the pandemic, and now she's up to 5 employees with a retail store with an MSP that is serving her. That's something that she didn't have pre-pandemic. So,
I need to ask this question. What about artificial intelligence?
oh, this is very cool. I love this question. It's a big one, though. It is a really big one. AI is going to change the world. It is absolutely going to change the world. If you think about how the internet changed the way in which people worked, AI is going to be that same moment. And I keep drawing the correlation back to when the internet first started coming around, and people are like, "Oh, it's never going to be a thing," or I don't understand the application or how it's going to work. People are saying the same thing about AI, and I think it's a massive opportunity if we can get MSPs to kind of wrap their arms around it and run with it and understand it. We could actually lead the charge, because I think there's a lot of very positive applications that AI can do for small businesses, more so than the enterprise ones, where it can make life much easier. There's a line that a European comedian uses, John Oliver. He says that AI will change white-collar jobs the same way the Industrial Revolution changed blue-collar jobs. And if you think back to the Industrial Revolution, the machines started replacing humans on general tasks that humans just either didn't want to do, or it was too much of a strain. AI is going to do exactly the same thing in this world. But who won during the Industrial Revolution were the people that figured out how to fix the machines, how to monitor the machines, how to build the machines, like those kinds of things. whereas AI will be exactly the same. So there's a big opportunity for us here to really understand it, run with it, take hold of it, and be one of the ones that's kind of coming to market with it rather than resisting, rather than waiting, those kinds of things. So Microsoft, look at Microsoft Copilot. That's a beautiful example of something that's already in place that we can make money at. That there's only going to be more and more and more of that. And I think the MSPs are in a perfect position to lead this charge, be the ones that are the experts around it, and bring it to the rest of the world through SMBs. I'm very, very bullish on AI.
I'm very bullish as well. And 3-4 weeks ago, we had the conference in Chicago for the B2SMB Institute members, and all the vendors, all the members of the institute agreed that given the big gap that SMBs have with regards to productivity versus the large companies, AI being a large productivity lever, it's going to be something that can completely revolutionize this space. And we just need to make sure collectively as a community that we actually help them to deploy this technology in a thoughtful way.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Absolutely agreed. And we have is nothing's quite figured out yet, right? So it's still early days, but again, the ones that are going to adopt this faster are the ones that are going to win at the end of the day. And I'm not suggesting that we need to throw everything away and change everything that we're doing right now. This is a journey, like the internet was, like cloud is. Like there's no reason to change everything that you're doing right now, but at least understand it. At least start having the conversations with your end user customers, your neighbors, your friends, your spouses. Like become an expert at this stuff, because that education will be immense amount of power when things do start finally opening up or do start evolving, and that's why we're really, really encouraging our partners to go and do this. Again, ton of education around AI at our conference in Berlin. Our CTO, who's now our CEO, actually did a phenomenal presentation on AI and the future of AI. But here's the thing that you go to these conferences, that's all you hear is AI. You've seen keynotes from Microsoft, Google executives doing this, and all they talk about is AI. The way we talk about it is, what is AI going to do for managed service providers? How are MSPs going to profit from it? So we do this kind of like near look, mid look, long look at how AI is going to impact the MSP space and what the opportunities are for the MSPs. Because at the end of the day, we all need to figure out how to make money doing this, or it's just not going to happen. So.
You are an ex-hardware guy. I'm an ex-hardware guy. I've been to Lenovo Tech World 3 weeks ago, I think in Seattle, and I've seen a lot of solutions that Lenovo presented with the partners. A lot of solutions that are relying on a very quick access to the locally, available data. Do you think we're going to see a swing back from cloud more to an on-premise solutions?
It's an interesting question. I think, and there's a debate. There's a debate to be had here. It's an interesting question that is it requires a little bit of thought, because we all predicted death of hardware, and that just hasn't happened. Some of the trending is indicating that hardware is actually growing. Some of it is indicating that it's going away. So it's really hard to figure out what is actually happening and where it's actually happening. The pandemic, people bought more hardware than ever before. So I think the other debatable question that's happening right now is the cloud. Like, has the cloud been good for SMB? So if you think about when the cloud was first coming out and the rush to get everybody to the cloud, what was the value out of the cloud? It was going to be cheaper, it was going to be more accessible, it was going to be more secure. And if you fast forward to where we are now 10 years later, the cloud is not cheaper. If anything, it's probably maybe even a little bit more than the traditional ways in which we did business. It's from a speed perspective that's arguable, whether a local on-prem is something that is faster than waiting for the actual cloud. And then from a security perspective, we all know the cloud is not a secure place, right? So that didn't solve that problem either. So if you kind of factor in all of those, do we need everything to be in the cloud? It's an interesting debate, and by no means is there any trending that is suggesting that people are reverting back to the traditional ways of doing things. But I think that a healthy hybrid mix between the two is probably somewhere in the middle there.
You mentioned security here at the IT Nation. I've seen so many solutions around security. I've learned so many new things about the security. Looks like a huge opportunity in front of MSPs.
I mean, it is, and it's it's been a relevant conversation now for probably a good 6-7 years. The great part about it is it's slowly being defined. So what needs to be in your stack? Who are the vendors that do that? How are you positioning this and selling this to your end users? But more so, I think from a security perspective, end users are starting. Small businesses are starting to understand the value of security. There was a point in time not that long ago where small businesses would give you, "It's not going to happen to me. I'm too small. I don't make enough money. Nobody cares about where I am." But now we all know that eventually everybody is going to get attacked, and how prepared you are for that attack will depend on how bad or how much damage the attack will do. And unfortunately, in the SMB space, you get something along the lines of a ransomware attack that could put you out of business. So because people are starting to understand it, because MSPs are starting to understand how to position it better, how to have better conversations with their end users about it, get them to understand the value and therefore pay for it. Yeah, cybersecurity is massive. It's something everybody's talking about, and finally, something that even SMBs are starting to invest in.
Rob, as you can see, I was absolutely right. It's a legend. He knows everything about this market. He's tons of new knowledge about the market and tons of knowledge about the MSP space. And I'm super happy that I've met you here at the IT Nation. And thanks you so much for spending time with me. And well, I'm looking forward to Amsterdam next year, or maybe Amsterdam. And when is the US version?
It's June in Denver, Colorado, June 9th. But would love to have you come out. Would love anybody to come out. We actually do get about. So we'll have 2,200 MSPs there, and it's from 40 different countries, usually 40, 50 different countries around the world that partners are coming out from. So there's going to be tons of Europeans out there as well. So Americans, Canadians, Aussies. The Aussies always show up to a lot of these things. We're doing business now in Southeast Asia. And one of the things that I love about that is because it's an international conference, the sharing and the growth of what's happening in the different markets is so phenomenal. You're meeting somebody on the other side of the world that has the same things that keep you up at night, and then you meet somebody that's on the opposite side of the world who's actually solved that problem. It is such an amazing experience to just work with other MSPs. So that's June 9th in Denver, Colorado.
June 9th in Denver, Colorado, and then in Amsterdam in October.
October. I don't want to say the date because I'm not quite sure. It's.
I'm gonna block entire October right now. Absolutely, absolutely, just for that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time that you have spent with me, and thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.